Welcome to the January 18th School Board meeting. This meeting is now in session. Would you all please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Career Center Air Force JROTC.
Color guard. Halt. Halt. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Center. Face. Forward. March.
Please be seated. I'll do it after recognitions, though. Will you remind me?
Yeah.
You all ready for the statement? Everyone? Yeah. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We have several recognitions we will be getting to, but before we do have a board statement we would like to read. The first 2 weeks of the 2018 new year have been filled with a wide array of conversations about immigration, diversity, and respect. These conversations have been at times disturbing and disheartening to us. As school board members, we know that our APS staff, students, families, and community members also have been saddened by the tone and at times malice that has been voiced in many of these conversations.
At the end of 2017 and early this year, we have witnessed the Me Too movement, which has unveiled the continued problems of gender equality and harassment. Sadly, other statements and conversations in the news have illustrated some disheartening examples of intolerance for people from certain nations, most recently including the Salvadoran, Haitian, and African immigrants. We also have been discouraged by the lack of progress that has been made by our executive and legislative leaders to protect our young dreamers, those young students who were offered protection from deportation and eligibility for work permits under DACA, the Federal Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Policy.
In contrast, this week we are celebrating the life, work, and aspirations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His message of tolerance, justice, unity, and equality were inspiring and uplifting. We were reminded about the importance of not measuring individuals or groups of people by their color, gender, religion, or nationality, but instead by the content of their character. Because many of these conversations in our nation and community have been troubling by the hurtful words used and disrespectful sentiments expressed. As school leaders, we believe it is important to reiterate and reaffirm the beliefs and values as articulated in the Arlington Public Schools mission, vision, and core values.
As school board members, educators, and school leaders, we welcome all students, regardless of their country of origin, their native language, their religious, ethnic, social, or sexual identity. We value and appreciate Arlington's diversity for the varied perspectives, history, and culture that our immigrant and Native families bring to APS. We welcome every student who lives in Arlington, and we are committed to doing our best to ensure that all children achieve their best and are prepared to thrive in our multicultural and global world.
As educational leaders, we are committed to supporting the emotional well-being of our students and strive to ensure that they feel safe and supported at school. As we have shared in the past, APS does not require information about the legal status of any of our students. Not only is this required by federal law, but we believe that morally and ethically, our mission is to serve all children in our community. We also do not share any confidential student information with outside groups without parental consent. We encourage all students to continue to come to school every day.
As elected leaders, we will continue to urge our national and state leaders to support legislation to protect the rights of our DACA students and immigrant families. All APS administrators and school staff, including our principals, teachers, counselors, classroom assistants, social workers, and other members of our APS team are here to support every student or family who needs help. We believe that America's diversity is a major strength and a key component of what makes our nation great. We are grateful for the privilege of serving the Arlington community, and we value your continued care and support. Thank you all very much. We are excited tonight that we have 3 recognitions that we will be celebrating, all honoring the achievements by talented, accomplished APS students. First, we have the Martin Luther King Jr. Visual and Performing Arts Contest winners. Dr. Murphy.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Cannon. I want to say welcome to all the families and students and staff that are here this evening. I also want to say congratulations. We are very, very proud of you, and it was very enjoyable to see many of you out the other evening at the Martin Luther King celebration that was held at Wakefield High School on Sunday evening. I also am very proud that all of our schools this year, again, participated in the visual arts and literary contest. And that would not be without the energy and effort and enthusiasm that our folks in school and community relations, particularly Dawn Smith, brings to this. So Dawn is here this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to her to share some of the celebration and honor the students that are here with us this evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Murphy. Again this year, Arlington Public Schools is pleased to partner with Arlington County in this year's tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., honoring both the man and his mission. This year marked the 49th year that the community has come together to celebrate Dr. King's legacy. This is an important event for APS because we want to ensure that all of our students learn about Dr. King's many contributions and understand how his work has affected our lives. Each year, we sponsor an essay and visual arts contest. This year, we collected over 1,200 entries with submissions from each of our schools. Students were asked to describe in writing or through visual art using different prompts for different age groups. The following prompts are as follows. Grades K through 2, how do you show love for people in your life? Grades 3 through 5, how have the people in your life inspired you to take a stand and to fight for what you believe in? Grades 6 through 8, have you ever challenged the status quo in your community or school? And grades 9 through 12, what peaceful protests have you seen or participated in? Let's look and listen and hear what they have to say. The 2018 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Literary and Visual Arts Contest allowed our APS students the opportunity to explore Dr. King's roots and life to make connections with their own life. Now let's listen to what they have to say.
What did you write about?
My family. I was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. So I wrote about my brother who had kind of problems with him, sort of, and I wrote about him because he inspired me in so many ways to like be different and try and stand out kind of, and always like, don't worry about like being not normal, kind of, and yeah, just be different.
I wrote a poem about how Rosa Parks connects to my life and how she's inspired me to, when I get older, to continue her work in my life. Well, she fought for freedom and equality by doing something that was just a simple action. And I think that it's not the same thing, but if I could, I would heal the earth in some way and so make the world a better place just like she did.
I first heard about it when either my brother or one of my parents told me, and I wrote about Martin Luther King Jr. and how I felt about his impact on students, or well, people of color today, and how we can use him as a model to propel us forward.
I wanted to participate because I like painting, and Martin Luther King, he treated people the same way as everybody, and being nice to people makes me happy. We all go to a school, and we realized that it was kind of unfair when just by the color of people's skin that they were separated, and we realized that we should do something to kind of inspire that.
We didn't do everything at once. We did one part, and then we said, okay, well that's done. So we moved on to another part.
It was really hard to make each part, let's say the ears to look. We made one ear and it looked really good, but then couldn't really make the other one look exactly the same.
Trying to make it the same was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge.
Well, he stood up for other people, and it just makes me feel good when I do that too, and when I help out. So I was really inspired because my sister, she is autistic, and I really know a lot about their feelings and how it is to be autistic. So they should be treated equal. So I tried to show that in my artwork.
I think Martin Luther King is just really a really powerful leader, and his messages are super important. And I think that originally when I was creating the piece, it was to touch on standing up for equality and breaking down those barriers that people have up. And I wanted to kind of take his standing and his position and how he impacted so many people and put it into my art. So.
I have a dream, my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Weren't they all just wonderful? If you would like to watch it again or share it with others, the video will be airing on AETV. It can also be viewed on the APS website, our Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitter. APS staff and families, it would not be possible without all of you. I would like to thank the members of our school staff who are here tonight to support our students, as well as family members and friends of this year's honorees. Would all the students, parents, friends, family members, and school staff please stand? Thank you for joining us and for the important support that you provide every day to our students. Each family tonight will go home with a copy of the DVD, and they will also receive a certificate of recognition from the school board, along with a monetary gift from Arlington Community Federal Credit Union in recognition of their achievement. The credit union is one of our valued APS partners, and they support our schools throughout the year, not just for this program, but also in promoting student artwork at their bank branches, sponsoring several branches in our schools, and providing information about financial literacy. The representative from the credit union, Susie Cook, Director of Marketing and Community Involvement, would you please stand? On behalf of APS, we thank you and everyone at the credit union for your continued support of our students. We value your participation and are honored to have you as a partner. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Murphy, Susie Cook, and Linda Erdis, our Assistant Superintendent of School and Communications, to come forward and assist me with the recognitions. I'm going to call each student forward to receive their certificate and monetary donation, and I'll ask all of our students to remain together up front until I've called everyone's name. So we're going to start with our third place in the Literary Arts Contest, Tyler Moss. Oh, look at that. Ava George from Arlington Traditional Elementary School. Jacob Simmons from Washington Lee. Keziah Lansdowne from Taylor Elementary School. Quinn Ferguson. Isabel Valdez Smith from H.B. Woodlawn Secondary Program. And Haley Tannenbaum from Yorktown High School. Our second place winners, Brielle Howard from Oak Ridge Elementary School. Jack Aggie from McKinley. Sarah Middleton from Gunston Middle School. Chris Rain Gilpin from Washington Lee. I don't think she's here. Colin Demir from Discovery. Yeah. Vivian Monaco from Drew Elementary School.
Congratulations. And then here's your certificate. Nope. You're going to come right over here.
Elizabeth Ives from H.B. Woodlawn. And Elma Shashir from Wakefield High School. Now to our first place winners, Isabella Choi from Taylor Elementary School. Jimmy Bates from Glebe Elementary School. Charlotte Papacosma from Gunston Middle School.
Here's your certificate. And your check and your badge.
Justin Box from the Arlington Career Academy. Isabella Delgado from Key Elementary School.
You guys have done a lot. Congratulations. And we'll put these two together.
Reese Clark and Coco Rigatati.
Okay, I have one.
And boy, you just got one. We'll go together. Okay. Kyla LaRue from HB Woodlawn Secondary Program.
Whoops. We will get the other certificate. You guys at the school, okay? This is Kyla.
Kyla? And Isabel Klein from Yorktown High School.
Congratulations.
And Frank is going to come take all their pictures.
Okay.
We'd like the board members to come on down.
Yes.
And Dawn?
Join us for the picture.
Come on, Susie.
Susan? Okay. Let me do this.
Ready? Right here. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Keep standing. You got lots of moms and dads snapping. We good? Congratulations.
Thank you all for joining us to celebrate our students' success this evening. And please don't forget to take your wonderful art home. Thank you.
Oh no, they're all gonna leave now. No, that wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan.
They've got slips out there.
Okay. Folks that can hear me, we understand a lot of people would like to leave at this point, so just to take advantage of this time, the school board needs to take a new school board photo with our newest member, Monique O'Grady, so we're going to take a moment and do that while you all are clearing out, so we use our time efficiently this evening. So everyone else, just hang tight and check your texts. Okay, thank you all for your indulgence on that. And we will go on with our meeting. We do have 2 more recognitions this evening. So next, we will celebrate 3 of our high school students who've been awarded Posse scholarships. Ms. Pam McClellan, our Supervisor of Counseling Services, will present this recognition. Ms. McClellan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce the Posse Scholarships, and I'd like to invite the board members to come down so you can shake the hands of these young people who receive these prestigious awards. The Posse Foundation identifies, recruits, and trains public high school students with extraordinary academic and leadership potential to become Posse Scholars. Since 1989, these students have been receiving 4-year full tuition leadership scholarships to partnership colleges. They participate in a rigorous, and I mean really rigorous, selection process called the dynamic assessment process from September through December. The process includes 3 rounds of interviews. At the end of the interview process, each student meets with a team of representatives from the college or university of their choice, including the dean of admissions, tenured faculty, and the school's president. The students are then selected through collaboration between Posse staff and the partnering institutions. So this year, 3 APS students have received this prestigious scholarship from Washington Lee High School. Catherine Mercado. Catherine? Melissa Montez. Also from Washington Lee High School. And Flor Caceres de Godoy from Yorktown High School. So I'd like to ask the students to come and let you know where they're going to college. Catherine, Melissa? Let everybody know the good news.
Hello, my name is Catherine Mercado, and I'm going to Wisconsin-Madison University.
Hi, my name is Melissa Montes, and I'm going to the University of the South, Sewanee. My parents are right over there, Anna Rodriguez and Raul Montes. Hi, my name is Flor Cáceres. I will be attending Lafayette College in the fall, and there's my mother and my little sister.
I'd also like to recognize my mom, who's sitting right there, and Mr. Sample, right behind my mother, and Ms. Capadia for helping me through this process.
That was really nice that you all thought to include your parents, and I'd like them to stand again so you could be applauded one more time. And just finally, we do have staff here who have been instrumental in supporting these students. If you'd like to stand. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Want to take a picture? Let's take a picture. Yeah.
If you would say, we have one more.
Yeah, we got one more. Yeah, I'm going to announce it.
Awesome. Okay, okay. And then we're going to do the whole handshake as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Well, okay. Why don't you use that?
You want to use this mic?
Let me just quickly say that we do have one more recognition, and Mr. Tyrone Bird, our Supervisor of Secondary Education, is going to introduce this one. Our student who has received the Horatio Alger National Scholarship.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. The Horatio Alger National Scholarship Program honors the achievements of outstanding individuals and encourages youth to pursue their dreams through higher education. These annual scholarships recognize outstanding students who, in the face of adversity, have exhibited unwavering commitment to pursue their dreams through higher education. Each national scholarship recipient is awarded $25,000 to apply toward their educational costs of the college or university of their choice, and will have access to a variety of association-provided resources, including counseling and referral services, internship opportunities, and alumni connections. In addition to the scholarship, each national scholar will receive a trip to Washington, D.C. I know that's not all exciting for us, but the rest of the world on April 5 through 7, 2018, to attend the Horatio Alger National Scholars Conference and participate in college preparedness and other educational sessions. Wakefield High School senior Aiden Onadelgar, my apologies, has won the prestigious 2018 Horatio Alger National Scholarship. Only 106 students were chosen out of over 45,000 applicants. Aiden was one of only 2 students from the Commonwealth of Virginia to win. Aiden, would you please come on up here so we can thank you? In addition to Aiden being here, his family from Wakefield High School is also here to celebrate with him. We have Miss McCracken, Miss Mathis, and Mr. Klishman. If you guys would come up, please, and celebrate with Aiden as well.
Okay, and I think at this point, members of the audience understand that we definitely know people come and go during the meetings, and if you were here for that recognition, we understand if you would like to depart at this moment, but we will be going on with our meeting. And we are now at announcements. Tomorrow, January 19th, we will hold a committee of the whole meeting at 8:30 a.m. in room 101. On January 23rd, there will be a work session on elementary boundaries at 7 p.m., also in room 101. On January 25th, we will have a work session with the ACI at 6:30 p.m. in room 101. And board colleagues, may I ask if you have any announcements this evening? Ms. Talento.
I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the fact that this year, all of our middle schools had students who made the District 12 Honors Band. So did all of our 3 comprehensive high schools. We had students from each school make the District 12 Honors Band, and a student from HB Woodlawn in Wakefield make the Wind Ensemble, which is the top District 12 band. We have a phenomenal music program here in Arlington, and I just want to take a moment and recognize how wonderful our teachers are and our students are to have this honor to represent us in the District 12 band. So thank you.
Yes. So we've celebrated literary, visual, and now music this evening in terms of the arts. Great program indeed. Dr. Any other announcements from board colleagues? Dr. Murphy, announcements?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cannon. Let's wait for this to come up in the back. There you go. There he goes. All right, thank you. We've got a couple of things in addition to the recognition with the Martin Luther King this evening. We want to recognize also all those recipients of this year's CCPTA, or County Council PTA Reflections Contest. I want to make a special thank you also to April Maddox and the leadership of CCPTA, who did an outstanding job in running an exciting and very well-organized program. I think it recognized students, and there was a lot of talent, as there was here this evening, that was demonstrated. We had all of our board members out, and we were honoring our students, and I think that we had over 1,000 entries in all of these categories, and many of our students are going to advance to the state, and we do have actually in the past had many of those students then advance to the national competition. So congratulations to all those involved, and again, thank you to our CCPTA, especially April, for sponsoring that. All right, we're coming to the conclusion with our school options and transfers. This is just a reminder. We're going to close out tomorrow at 4 p.m. The application process for secondary options that include HB Woodlawn, Arlington Tech, the Wakefield AP Capstone, and the Washington Lee IB program, as well as for high school transfers for Wakefield and Yorktown. As made mention at some of our previous meetings, we opened up the transfer application process for some of our middle schools. That's going to extend on until January the 26th. We're going to be sending out some reminders as we move toward that date, but just let folks know kind of where we are, and we've had a good response with many of the online applications. We're coming to the end of the second grading quarter here at the end of the month. We're also going to reach the midpoint of the school year. Just a reminder that secondary grade report cards will be coming home February the 6th, and then elementary a week later after that. We've also begun the course selection process for 2018-19, so you should see some of this information begin to arrive home for secondary students here in the latter part of the month as they begin to look at their course sequence as they move toward graduation. We also have kindergarten information night coming up here on Monday. That will be here right next door at Washington Lee. In the event of some type of inclement weather, we have a snow date for January the 29th, and this is for all prospective kindergarten parents. We have our principals that come out that are part of this as well, and so they have an opportunity. We give you some information at the beginning of the meeting, and then parents have an opportunity to engage and talk with staff. Not only are principals there are assistant principals and sometimes some additional staff. It's a good time to ask questions, and there are different resources and services that are available at this event. Summer Activities Fair is coming up on February the 9th. This is a collaboration between us and the county, and it's sponsored by our CCPTA organization. It's going to be at a new location this year, and that's going to be at Kenmore Middle School. So I know shortly at the beginning of February, we're going to be pushing out information that you'll actually be hearing about our summer school program, but we also have many of the county activities as well as some of the vendors in the area that sponsors camps. So this is a good time for families to begin to think about and prepare for various summer activities that they want to take advantage of, whether they're with the school, whether they're with the county, or whether they're with some of the private institutions in the area. I want to congratulate Arlington Public Schools. This week we learned that a publication, Business Insider, ranked school divisions across the United States and in the state of Virginia. Arlington Public Schools was ranked #1, so that's something I think we're all very proud of. This ranking was based on the niche methodology, and I've reported on how niche has recognized Arlington as one of the leaders in their look at school excellence or public school excellence. I'd encourage folks to look at the list. I took a look at the other 49 states. It gives you kind of a sense of where we are. We are one of the 4th largest school divisions in the array of the 50 schools across the nation, and they had 4 different criteria that they provided ratings on. So I think it reflects very positively on what we all do for our students, and also how well our students perform. So well done, Arlington. We've got a couple of projects that are in motion, and so this information is available on our website, but I just want to draw your attention to where we are with the new school at Wilson, and you can get a kind of a snapshot there with the work that's being done. If you've also driven by where Fleet Elementary is there on the Thomas Jefferson Middle School campus, you can see that they are moving forward there as well. And the plans are for us to begin site work at Stratford here at the end of winter or beginning of spring, however you classify March. I'd like to classify it as the beginning of spring, but they're going to begin that site work there as well. So a lot of our projects in motion, plans to open these 3 new schools or these 3 new facilities with the opening of school in September of 2019. Coupled with that, we have our principal searches for our new APS schools underway. At the last board meeting, we announced that the principal for the Montessori school that will be located at the Henry site has been completed, and that's Ms. Genovi. She'll be moving into that position effective July 1. We have 2 other searches that are underway that Dr. Christy Murphy is leading, and that's for the new neighborhood school at Drew, as well as the new middle school at Stratford. Those selections are planned to be also completed here by July 1 of this year. And those communities that are touched by that are learning about that. We're engaging with the staff, we're engaging with the communities so that they're involved in that principal selection process as communities are with all of our principals. We also want to recognize next week that is Principal Appreciation Week, so thank you to many of our school leaders. Many of them you may have seen here tonight as part of our student recognitions, and the leadership they provide in our schools is much appreciated. So a big shout out and a big thank you to them as well. You know, we are hearing that it is a tough winter, not only with the temperature and the inclement weather we're experiencing, but also that folks are sick. So continue to wash your hands, cover up when you cough. If you're not feeling well, take a day and stay home. And make sure when you return you're 100%. And we also pass along in hearing it's not too late to get a flu shot. So we just want to continue these good practices so that we all stay healthy. Again, weather reminders. I'll just speak to. We've had a few questions. How are decisions made? When are decisions made? We look very closely at when the weather is going to be coming through. This week earlier, it was a little tough in the sense that the peak of the storm was forecast right at the time that we would have students, moving about in the school division in the morning. So that's why one of the primary reasons we elected to wait that out. It played out very nicely. The storm passed. It actually did not hit the peaks that had been originally forecast. So we listened to those forecasts very closely. I think our primary issue with this is the safety of our students as well as the safety of our staff. I want to apologize to parents. I recognize sometimes this causes inconveniences, but please be patient with us. We're trying to take a number of things into consideration when making these decisions, and we always, I think, err on the side of caution as far as how we make these decisions and then how we move forward. Again, some of the timelines, we try and make decisions before the evening if we see storms are coming through earlier, but by 5 a.m. we've pushed the message out, and the same is true if we're going to look at some type of early dismissal. All right, I think that is it for announcements this evening.
Just gonna work it out. Awesome. Thank you very much. Ms. Van Dorn, question.
Dr. Murphy, I have 2 questions for you on your update. You talked about the deadline for Arlington Tech being tomorrow, and we have received some correspondence regarding Arlington Tech and some questions in the community. We are proceeding to expand that program at the rate we had anticipated to be doing so, and we'll be adding the anticipated number of seats this coming year, so that application process is proceeding.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We've got I think right now we had projected 200 seats. We do evaluate that and look at that. Last year, I think we had projected 100 seats, and at the initial time of the application, we exceeded that, and I think we took all of those. Not all of those students, though, elected to attend Arlington Tech, but you know.
We're continuing as planned. I just want to make
Absolutely.
sure that we are doing a lot of work at that site, and people have been concerned, but full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead.
And then the other question we had was whether or not on the course request forms for both the students at Arlington Tech as well as those incoming would have the possibility of having American Sign Language at that site. That is on the course request form, so we can at least gauge interest, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
No, I know specifically that Dr. Natras, I don't know if you want to speak to this, Dr. Natras is looking at that, and I think you've underlined the word possibility, so.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone. We are now ready to act on our consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. I'm happy to announce that as part of consent, the board appointed Susan Rochard as the Arlington Tech representative to the Career Center Working Group. Also, as part of consent, the board received the School Health Advisory Board, known as SHAB, briefing report. SHAB is a state-mandated board that advises APS on many issues related to school health. This comprehensive briefing report highlights their work during the past school year as well as the priorities for this year, and you can find this document on board docs under the consent agenda. Last year, SHAB helped with several initiatives, including developing the new wellness policy and policy implementation procedures called PIPs, assisting with allergy guideline dissemination in the schools, and also with hand washing guidelines implementation. And they also supported efforts throughout APS promoting healthy eating and exercise. This year, top priorities for SHAB are indoor air quality, asthma and absenteeism, and turf fields. They also will look at a number of other issues such as staffing of school nurses, adequate sleep, use of electronic devices in elementary school, maximizing unstructured recess time, promoting healthy eating choices, and supporting efforts to curb substance abuse. And I might add that these are volunteers who raise children and perhaps have day jobs as well. They've a really full agenda, terrific stuff. Because all these topics are of interest to the board and the community, we have invited SHAB and the staff to present a more in-depth monitoring report on their work at an upcoming board meeting, and that is going to take place in March. So we will, at that point, learn more about their work and also have board questions and conversation. And of course, there's always an opportunity for community members to come and speak during our monitoring items. So we invite you to stay tuned and tune in March when we have more information about that. Finally, as part of our consent, we did transfer funds from our capital reserve fund to several of our capital projects. That was presented as an information item at our January 4th meeting, and we did act on that just now as part of consent. Okay, there is a minor issue right now because the next item on our agenda would be non-agenda comments. And we do have a rule with our earlier start time that we adopted at the beginning of this school year. We did promise citizens that we would not start non-agenda speaker comments until 7 p.m. This would make sure that no one was inconvenienced by our earlier start time. Because we've made that promise, we know people might be tuning in at 7 to see those speakers. So what I would like to suggest, since I think it is 10 till, let me just do a couple of housekeeping things. Ms. Mercado, how many non-agenda speakers do we have?
2 speakers.
We have 2. And how many speakers on the superintendent's update?
We don't have any.
Okay. Dr. Murphy, is that a fairly brief presentation? I believe so. Why don't we go ahead and proceed with that, if you all don't mind, and we will, are those the 2 speakers speaking about things that might fit under the superintendent's update, or should we, let's, okay.
Yeah, I think
let's, okay, let's go ahead and do the update.
Okay.
And we'll sort of fit things in as we go.
All right, so let me provide you, as I regularly do, a little bit of an update with where we are with the 2017-18 action plan. And this is an outgrowth of the 3 to 5 year plan that we brought out last year. We've broken some of these areas down pretty specifically this year into essentially 4 different categories. So I'm going to go through each of those particular groups, tell you where we are, what's transpiring. I'll remind you, much of this information, if not all of it, is available on Engage. Engage is our website where you can go, you can see schedules, you can see one-pagers, you can see decision points, and you can learn about some of the community activities that are coming up in relationship to the various groups and the activities that we have slated here. In Group 1, we're dealing with policy and policy revision, and so we're continuing to move forward with the school facility and naming policy criteria. Staff did receive a report from George Mason University, and staff is currently reviewing that, analyzing some of the feedback that we received in that report. We're going to be making that available and posting that on our website, so I encourage folks to be looking for that, and so they can get a sense of some of the information or an input that we've received from the community. And then if you look here through the rest of the schedule, the drafting of the criteria proposal will commence here a little bit later in the winter, and then the plan is for us to bring forward a proposal or an outline of criteria to the board a little bit later this spring. You're going to hear, continuing on with policies and policy revision, you're going to hear later this evening about acceptable use. We have 2 policies here. We've condensed about 5 of our policies into 2. The first one is going to be presented tonight, and that's kind of the technical policy on filtering and federal guidelines. And then the second policy on acceptable use and internet safety and digital citizenship. We are now bringing that to some of our advisory groups and committees, TCI, ACI advisory committees. The plan is then to have community engagement toward the latter part of February, and then bring this initially as an information item the latter part of March, with action being taken the first part of April. The second group has to do with prep for new schools and programs. As you can see with the middle school boundaries, we've completed that, but we're also, as I made mention in my announcements earlier, we opened up transfers at select schools. That's going to continue here through the 26th. I've kind of outlined some of this about applying for secondary options and high school transfers. And then we are going to have a elementary school boundary work session next week on the 23rd. So that's kind of kicking off the elementary school boundary process. When we move into Group 3, it has to do with the capital improvement plan. This year is a capital improvement plan year, so we'll be bringing that forward after the budget is adopted. Right now, though, what we have slated is we're going to be bringing the Arlington facility and student accommodation and projections here in February, along with capital utilization. And then after that information is presented to the board as a monitoring item, we will come forward with information and action with an updated CIP framework. The board, by the way, did see the CIP framework earlier, but there's been some new information around the AVSAP and capacity utilization that we want to kind of integrate into the updated CIP. We've got strategic plan here. The deadline for community input on the draft mission and vision statement and core values comes up here on January the 19th at 9 a.m. And then there is a steering committee meeting planned for the 24th. And then I'll be proposing or presenting my proposed budget for fiscal year 2019, the latter part of February or February the 22nd. Finally, with capital initiatives, we've got 2 here that I'd like to just highlight. The first is last evening there was a community meeting on the design options for the Reed School or the school at the Reed building. That is slated then to be coming forward to the school board for the concept design in March. And then with the Career Center, we have the Career Center Working Group that's going to be conducting a site or area tour on Saturday. And then the Career Center Working Groups has a meetings planned from the 22nd through the 29th. And then we are also on the same schedule looking at construction manager at risk contracting. And then the hope is that, not the hope, we intend to also, with our summer project, accommodate for growth at Arlington Tech as planned. So all those things are kind of moving forward as slated or as planned. And then finally, the last capital initiative here with the Education Center. Once the strategic plan has been completed later this spring, the plan is to bring forward an instructional focus. An architect also will be selected later this spring for the process that will be completed, and then we'll also begin the building level planning committee. And then we're going to be looking at, because the board has requested, possible 2 schedules, one for August 2020 or August 2021 for completion. That's going to be dovetailing with the CIP should we make this particular building available for whatever program we move in this direction. Again, I'll point you back to the Engage website for the many resources that we have. And I think that gives us a pretty good snapshot about where we are at this point in time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we didn't have speakers signed up. I do want to just check one thing because I'm told that there weren't speaker slips out front when we began the meeting. So if anyone is here and intended to speak on the superintendent's update topic but didn't have a slip, is there anyone who Okay. Anyone who intended to speak on this topic, the superintendent's update? Okay. Just wanted to double check that. So why don't we go ahead and complete this item, then we will go back and do non-agenda items for those of you who came to do that. So board colleagues, questions or comments on the superintendent's update? Ms. Van Doren.
Dr. Murphy, I just would like to reiterate this point for those people who are considering middle school transfers. Students who had opted to transfer to a different middle school are, in essence, sort of grandfathered, are able to continue and finish their years at the middle school without reapplying, correct?
That is correct. I might state it
differently.
A little bit differently. If you took advantage of transfers in the previous years and you did transfer to a different middle school in your neighborhood middle school, and you're at the new middle school or the school that you wanted to request as the transfer, you are there until you complete. So the statement I've used is, once you're in, you're in.
Board colleagues, any other questions or comments? Okay, that was very efficient. Would you?
10 minutes.
You believe it's still a minute before 7, but
right
I can use that time to read the speaker guidelines, and by that time it will be 7 o'clock. All right, the school board welcomes public comment. Generally, school board members do not respond to comments during the meetings. If they have not already signed up online, speakers must submit a speaker slip to the clerk before the agenda item they wish to speak on is called. Each speaker may speak for up to 2 minutes. There is a timer to help you keep track of your time, and speakers should conclude their remarks when the buzzer sounds. All comments should address a matter related to Arlington Public Schools. Speakers should be courteous and address their comments to the entire school board. Speakers are called in the order in which they sign up. If you have written comments, please give them to the clerk. And we do ask the audience to refrain from applauding, as it takes away from the subsequent speakers, but please use a visible knock as a way of showing support. Ms. Mercado, would you please call the first speaker?
Yes, the first speaker is Mr. Chips Johnson.
Good evening, board and Dr. Murphy. I'm here, Chips Johnson, here on behalf of the Highland Park Overly Known Civic Association. Following up on Dr. Murphy's update a moment ago, last night was a truly wonderful demonstration of government and civic participation. It's not unusual in the county, luckily. Many Westover residents came together to learn the options of the new Reed School. They listened, they questioned, they learned. What we heard essentially was the total support for one of the 4 options that were provided. We also heard requests to limit the construction on the Reed property to the expected 725 students. We also heard about the anticipated parking traffic problems. We assume that you folks are going to be taking care of that as well. The meeting was basically an effective teaching moment for the community. A lot of people have not been to any functions like that before, and I think they all left pretty impressed by how the county school system works. Congratulations on that teaching moment. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Ms. Ingrid Gant.
Good evening. To the chair, Dr. Barbara Cannon, members of the school board, Dr. Murphy, superintendent, to the executive leadership team and all assembled. My name is Ingrid Gant, president of the Arlington Education Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of our members. Happy New Year. I know you guys missed me. I wasn't able to attend the first school board meeting in January, and I would like to welcome Ms. Monique Grady to this team, and I know you're going to do a wonderful job. As a native of Arlington, when watching the weather forecast on television, we dreamed about having a snow day. So let me first applaud you, Dr. Murphy, for the decisions in making sure that our safety of our students and our employees have been put first. Could they come a little earlier? As you already stated, we can't please everybody, but for the more than 60% of your employees who live outside of Arlington, certainly we can do a better job. However, decisions thus far, like I said, have come to support everyone as a whole, and we appreciate that. Yet within this same rich county, we have students and teachers having to live without power, having to live without electricity, having to live without water, having to live without heating and air. We've dealt with this I know my 2 years of being here, and policies are in place to speak to how we handle emergency situations, directing what protocol, whether we're moving classes to utilize spaces within the buildings to educate and try to accomplish, yet we still have to teach sometimes in the dark. I want you to keep in mind that there's an equity issue here. We had 2 schools come on board at the same time. One happened to be in North Arlington, very dynamic school, Discovery. One happened to be in South Arlington, a very dynamic school, Wakefield. Yet Wakefield seems to have a lot of problems that have to be dealt with on a daily basis, and I'm not seeing the equity issue being dealt with in a swift fashion. So I'm hoping we can try to tend to some of the things that are going on in South Arlington like we do with the things that are going on in North Arlington. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Could I ask Dr. Murphy, do you have any updates on the situation at Wakefield that you could share?
Absolutely. I'm going to turn to Mr. Chadwick here in just a minute. But I do want to make folks aware, and Ms. Gant, I know you have brought this to our attention as well as the administration and the staff at Wakefield. So I'm going to let Mr. Chadwick kind of provide a little bit of background of what we've done. We are concerned about some of the events that have just recently happened because we thought we had solved many of these issues. So this is a little bit of a surprise to us. But Mr. Chadwick, let me turn to you. Talk about some of the things that we did initially, where we are now with some of the events that have just recently occurred, and how we're going to solve those.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Good evening. We have been concerned for some time, pretty much since the building opened, at the performance of mostly the HVAC system at Wakefield, but some of the other systems too. There were issues with water pressure. As a result of that, last year we started a recommissioning of the building. We hired consultants who did not design the building to come in, and basically commissioning is returning everything to its original design condition and confirming that everything is working as it is supposed to do. That's actually a 2-part process. It's a winter process for the heating season, and then it's a summer process for the cooling season. The process for the heating season is almost complete. We do have a preliminary report that will be in the hands of maintenance tomorrow so that we can really address some of the issues. The particular issue that happened this week was because a valve was turned off by one of our workers who didn't understand what that valve did. He was trying to solve an immediate problem and created a bigger problem. As soon as we found that, we addressed it, and the building heated up quickly afterwards. There are 3 or 4 classrooms that still remain a mystery to us as to why they are not heating properly. We are expecting some results from the commissioning study to address why those particular rooms aren't heating. We also have some issues with the toilet fixtures, and it appears that the brackets that hold the toilet fixtures in the back of the wall are inadequate. That is a rather large fix because it means we have to take the wall out and to install heavier duty brackets to make sure that the items stay put. So we are replacing those with the existing brackets as they break so that we have toilets, but over the summer we plan to be doing a bigger fix on those so that the problem is solved at its root. And I would just like to point out that one of the particular metrics for facilities and operations, which binds us all together, is instructional time. And so all of us work together to make sure that kids get to school on time so they don't lose instructional time, that conditions in schools are such that they can maintain those optimal learning environments. And we take it as a great loss when we don't achieve that. So we are very, very motivated to address these problems. Some of our buildings, I will be frank, are a little more complicated than they ought to be. And the big difference between Wakefield and Discovery is that Discovery is a much more straightforward HVAC system, which may well be appropriate for an elementary school. A high school obviously is much more complex.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chadwick. As the liaison to Wakefield, and I think I have been the liaison for a little while and have been following some of these issues, Ms. Gant has raised them before, the advocates have gotten a little tired of having to come to us and share this. So I'm glad to hear that you've got things going in place and hope that will clear a number of things up. May I invite board colleagues, any questions before we go on? Oh, okay. Okay. We're back on track with our schedule. Our next item is the FY 2018 Mid-Year Fiscal Monitoring Report. Dr. Murphy.
Yes, let me turn to Ms. Peterson, Assistant Superintendent for Budget and Finance, to bring this report to us this evening. Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to present the mid-year budget review and the CIP mid-year report. This report is presented to you as of November 30th. Tonight, I'm going to review the purpose of doing the mid-year review, our status at this time, any recommendations that we have, and then review where we are with our capital improvement program. We do a mid-year review in order to make sure that our current year is on good footing, that we don't have, if there are any adjustments that we need to make, we have sufficient time left in the remainder of the year to make those adjustments if they're required. And also to ensure that the budget that we're currently building for next year is actually being built on a solid foundation and that it will be sustainable. Our fiscal status as of FY 2018 is showing that we need to make some adjustments in our revenue. Our local revenue is down a little bit, and our state revenue is also down a little bit. Local revenue is down mainly because of Medicaid, but we foresee that we will be able to recoup that revenue next year when we go forward with a new billing system. State revenue is down a little bit because of enrollment projections. The state projected ADM was a little bit higher than our September 30th enrollment came in. So we are down a little bit in revenue, about $1 million. This is very much in line with what we've seen over the last couple of years. So I'm not really concerned about that at all. We have on the expenditure side about $7.8 million in additional salary that is available. That is over and above the amount that we have budgeted in this year's budget for salary and lapse and turnover. We also have a slight overage in our debt service and in our part-time temp, hourly, and substitutes. So total expenditures, we are seeing savings of about $6.3 million. When we net that against our revenue, we have about $5.3 million available at this time. And this is being quite conservative because we are only, this is as of November 30th, we're only really, when you look at it carefully, about 3 months into the year when we start with September as the beginning of a real beginning of our year. If you take that $5.3 million, we have a placeholder in the 19 budget where we use $3.5 million from the 18 budget to fund part of 19. So when you look at that, really our net funds available at mid-year are about 1.8. This again is also very much in line with what we've seen at mid-year over the last couple of years. And as you know, we're about to do the final fiscal closeout for 17. Our closeout comes in quite a bit higher than this, but we have to be conservative now just because we're so early on in the school year. As a result, we have no recommendations at this time for any use of funds. And I'm happy to take questions on that portion of the presentation now before I move on to the CIP.
Okay, and we do have a speaker. Do you want to, should we
finish? Okay.
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and finish, and we'll do speaker and all questions on both topics.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
Everyone can keep operating in mind, and we go on to see it. Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. So a recap of our CIP as of November 30th, our major construction and minor construction major maintenance. As you can see, we have balances left at this point in time, as you might expect, since we have not finished all of the projects that we have in line. Major construction, some changes since the last report, which is the final fiscal closeout, which you saw in December and are going to act on this evening. We have added the Glebe property purchase, the Reed project, an HVAC project at Randolph, and roofing projects at ATS and Randolph. Under minor construction, major maintenance, we have identified 119 projects so far this year and completed 81% of them, which has required $4.6 million or 51% of the budget. And we currently have a reserve of about $500,000. All right, questions on the whole thing?
So first, we will take our speaker.
Yes.
Ms. Mercado, could you call the speaker?
Mr. Josh
The
Folk.
speaker.
Good evening. My name is Josh Folk. I have a tag now. I am now officially the chair of the Compensation Committee for the Arlington Education Association. Before my speech, I want to say, as a parent, I want to thank the school system for receiving the text message at 4:30 in the morning saying we'll update again by 7, and then at before 7 a.m. getting that other update. I very much appreciated that. Thank you. So, on to the third quarter review. I am here tonight to make only one number more publicly known: how much is already additionally available from lapse and turnover, $7.8 million. Year after year, we see these large lapse numbers, and they are quite standard. As you move forward, I ask you to please ensure that every penny of lapse and turnover is held in trust for the future step increases for your employees. $7.8 million. Thank you.
Saved us a minute there. Board colleagues, questions and comments, or comments? Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions about the, can you go back to that slide? I don't know which one it is. The one with the numbers on it, yeah. That one, yeah. So this, am I reading this right? This is, well, why don't you tell me? Additional salary lapse in addition to what?
In addition to what we had budgeted in the FY18 budget, which is about $3.8 million.
You budgeted $3.8 million, and you said you were really just counting this from the beginning of the school year. September, October, and November, that we've accumulated 7.8 million additional in lapse in turnover.
At this point, yes, that could go down, it could go up.
What would make it go down?
If we have vacant positions for which we have budgeted X dollars and somebody comes in and makes X plus something more than that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. And my other question is, can you go to the other slide with the numbers on it? That one.
That one.
Yep, thanks. And you said there were a couple of additions?
Yes. The Glebe Elementary line for the purchase of the property next to Glebe, correct?
That one?
We added an HVAC project at Randolph and a roofing projects at ATS and Randolph, and that line.
In
And then
that line there?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we added the Reed project, right there.
Okay, and so they were added after the FY18 budget was established?
They were added since July 1 of 2017.
To the major construction budget?
Correct.
And is there so they aren't necessarily going to be spent this fiscal year, those funds, right?
I would say that most of them will be spent either over the course of the next year or year and a half. Especially the HVAC and roofing, they're going to take a bit longer and they're going to happen over the summer. So yes, they aren't going to be finished by June 30th of this
Okay,
year.
because I know I'm more familiar with the Randolph one, but that I thought the work was going to be scheduled for the summer of 19. Is that right?
I'm not exactly sure of the entire schedule of Randolph, but it will not take place this fiscal year. So it will take place summer of this year and possibly into the summer of next year.
Okay. Is that right, John? Summer
That's
of
correct.
19?
We actually received bids for that work on Wednesday, and they were within budget, so we will be proceeding, but it will be done over 2 summers.
Summer of 19 and summer of 20?
No, I think
Some-
some will be
summer
done
of
this
18.
summer, summer
Oh,
of
this
18
summer.
and summer of 19.
Okay, because that's really germane to what my question is, which was why are we doing this now if I had thought the work was going to be done in like a year and a half from now?
Right. Well, part of it is that the project needs to be designed before the actual work can take place. So once we start putting money, outflows of funding, we like to have a budget that goes along with that. And we want to make sure that we're sticking to that budget. So once we start actually expending any funds, whether it's for architects or engineers or design or whatever it might be for, we put it on this list.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Ms. O'Grady?
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. I had a question regarding any potential cost overruns, and if you feel like all of these projects seem to be continuing on budget. I know with some other projects that we're looking at, future projects, we are looking at maybe some construction costs that have gone up because of availability of materials or people or what have you.
That's a very good question, and I think that if any of us had the correct answer to that, we would be not sitting here, we'd be doing our thing on Wall Street. I can say that of the projects that we've started and are really going gangbusters at this point, so we have Fleet and Wilson where we've hired the CMR, you're about to approve a GMP for that. Those projects, I feel very sure about, certain that we will come in with, that there will not be cost overruns unless some major catastrophe happens. Some of these other projects where we're just beginning on that project, it's really hard to say where we might be. I don't like the use of the word cost overruns because that means that we've started, we put a budget together, and then now, we're spending money willy-nilly. But on some of these projects where we haven't really firmed anything up, we haven't really hired our architects and engineers yet, we'll have to see, because the conditions and the market are changing so rapidly that I can't guarantee you that everything that we've got on the books right now is going to be there at the exact dollar figure that we've said that it will be.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, Ms. Van Dorn. Oh, okay. All right.
Good.
We shall, yes.
Thank you.
That completes our monitoring items. We will go on to action. We have 3 action items. And the first is the final design and construction contract award for the full GMP for Fleet Elementary School. Dr. Murphy.
So I'm seeing Mr. Bergen making his way to the podium. And while he's getting prepared to address this particular item, I just want to remind folks what has been our practice previously is that we bring an information item forward and we present that in great detail. Tonight with our action items, to give folks a little bit of background if they didn't hear that information item, we're going to try and provide a little bit of a summary and then the board will go ahead and take action on that particular item. Obviously, if there's questions or additional information they want about a particular action item, they may elect to do that. So I think this evening, Mr. Bergen, you're going to kind of kick us off with a little bit of summary background for maybe some of our viewers at home who may not have seen this as an information item, and then we'll go ahead and move into the particular motion and resolution. So I'll turn to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So once again, I have the pleasure of presenting this project. As was stated, you saw this material 2 weeks ago at the information session. During that presentation, there were a few extra slides. This presentation has been condensed to only the exhibits that were shown. And just to clarify, none of the content within any of the exhibits have changed since the meeting of January 4th. So this is a proposed final design and guaranteed maximum price GMP contract for Fleet Middle School. This exhibit identifies the capacity of the school, that is 752 students. A slide in Exhibit B comparing the existing site plan and the overall final site plan. The facility will have 2 levels of below-grade parking. We've actually removed all the dirt, and we're constructing and pouring the concrete for this parking garage. On the first floor, we have the gymnasium, cafeteria, kindergarten and pre-K classrooms, as well as the main administrative area. The second, Exhibit E is the second and third floor plans. On the second, we have the library, the arts. The third is the music spaces and classrooms. And then on this exhibit, the fourth floor, which has additional classrooms and the roof plan as well. So as we showed 2 weeks ago, compared to the schematic design phase, there's been no change in the proposed total project cost. And the same is consistent with the project funding. A total of $59 million was shown to you at schematic design last year, and actually 2016. So we're in 18 now, so that's a year and a half ago. And then similarly, the grand total for the jointly funded items is 17.9, which is consistent with what was shown at schematic design. So that concludes the brief presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Let me first ask Ms. Mercado, no speakers, is that correct?
Don't have any speakers.
Oh, perhaps we do. Okay. What I would like to do is first have a motion, and then we will have comments on the motion and well, let me ask this, any clarifying questions, not comments or discussion, but clarifying questions for Mr. Bergen before we take a motion. Okay, may I have a motion?
Yes. Having carefully reviewed the extensive input from the BLPC, PFRC, various community groups and leaders, and the superintendent's recommendation, I move that the school board take the following actions as illustrated in the exhibits presented at the January 18th, 2018 school board meeting, which are identical to those shown at the January 4th, 2018 meeting. Approve the final design for the project as generally described in exhibits A through F. Approve the total budget, funding available, and joint fund items as described in exhibits G through I, and award Phase 2 construction phase services GMP contract to Whiting Turner in the amount of $46,750,000 by increasing the existing purchase order to include the added contract value.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I second.
Excellent. At this point, before we vote, do any board members want to make any comments about? Okay, Ms. O'Grady.
I have a comment. This is an exciting moment, I know, for people in the neighborhood community that will, who will send their children to Fleet. I wanted to say, being a former member of that BLPC, that this proposal that's going forward is missing a few things that the community would like to have, including the koi pond, a completed koi pond. I understand that we will be putting some infrastructure in place for it to potentially be put in later. I just wanted to reiterate that I believe that members of the community feel that that is an important aspect of their instructional learning, the students' instructional learning. And so if there is a way for us to revisit that, I think that would be helpful. One of the other items that will continue to have infrastructure under this plan, but will not be completed, as I understand it, is a elevator. And I'd like for us to, if there's any possible way to consider looking at that, if there are any savings as the project moves forward.
Did you want to respond to that at all, or it's sort of a comment?
I can do that. We, as we have previously stated, we will look to contingency as we get further into the project to see how much we believe is remaining, and once we're secure on how much we believe is remaining, then we will prioritize those. And the first priority is, of course, the elevator, and the second one, and the second one is the koi pond or learning landscapers, might be a better way of putting it.
Thank you. Ms. Van Doren, question?
Hello, Mr. Bergen, how are you?
Good evening.
Could you, I apologize, I was not able to come to the last meeting, given some family demands. But can you please tell me to what extent principles of universal design were applied to this project?
Certainly. So the project has had that as a forefront and design principle from the beginning. You may or may not remember, but during concept and schematic design, that topic came up quite a bit, and we actually changed the elevation of the ground floor to remove physical steps from South Oak Glebe up to the facility. So that was just one of the adjustments that we made through the course of design to make sure that equal access was provided.
So at this school, all students can enter through the front door of the school easily, and older people with mobility issues, anybody can enter the front door of the school?
Yes, ma'am. And just to clarify, there was some discussion during the last session about the elevator. We are providing an elevator from the garage up to the ground floor. So the absence of this other elevator doesn't impact accessibility in that way.
Is there an elevator inside the school itself?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, so students are able to access all levels of the school
Absolutely.
with ease?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just want to comment in terms of Ms. O'Grady's question. There was a correspondence, in fact, just today between the BLPC chair, Megan Haydaz, and the project manager, Steve Stricker. They are continuing to discuss the status of the koi pond and the elevator and keeping close tabs on. There is definite community interest in having that happen, and they're going to be watching that carefully. So everyone is very aware of that interest, and I think that's a sincere focus for you all.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that, if there are no more comments or questions, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations to those who've worked very hard on this project to get us to this point. More to do.
Yes.
Most definitely. We are on to our next action item, and that is the final design and construction contract award for full GMP for the new school at Wilson. Dr. Murphy.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to turn now to Mr. Jeff Chambers, and he's got the presentation this evening on Wilson. We're going to follow the same format that Mr. Bergen followed as far as the presentation, and then have the board take action.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be able to present the Wilson project this evening to you. And as with the Fleet project, this was presented on January 4th at the school board meeting, and we have providing a condensed version of the presentation that was done at that time with the exhibits. A through L are in the presentation. There have been no changes to that information, and it's consistent with what was shown in the information item. Just to bring everybody up to date, you can see during the design of the project, the square footage of the building has remained consistent. It has grown a little bit as the project progressed, but the capacity of the building has remained the same. As a reminder, with regard to the site plan, we have a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. In the Phase 1 option, or the Phase 1 of the project, there will be in the upper left-hand corner of the Phase 1 rendering is a white box. That is where the county's fire station will be located. Once that is removed, there will be a field created over that entire space at the back of the school, right on 18th Street. On the lowest level, we have the black box theater, service areas, mechanicals, and some learning spaces. Moving up the floor plan, we have the administrative area for the Stratford program with the Quincy Street, or the 18th Street entrance, which is actually off of Quinn for the first phase. The gymnasium is the green space, and the lavender space is the auditorium, with the art room in the red below the gymnasium. The next floor up, we have the balcony to the auditorium in the lavender. We have the cafeteria in the teal, Stratford spaces, dedicated Stratford spaces in the tan and red, and the administrative spaces for the HB program in the blue to the right. This is the main entrance from Wilson Boulevard. You can see the very tiny arrow and the entry from the bottom there, and then to the left on the right-hand side below the blue box is the main entry, which comes from the linear park that will be created between the Penzance building and the school. Moving up, we have the public level terrace, which have the ovals in it, which is a performance space, but this will be open to the public during the hours that the space will be available for public use. Classroom spaces in this level also includes the library, which is the lavender area. Moving up another level, we have the music areas, which are in the pink, and classroom spaces on the other bar, and the second level up for a terrace. Then we have the next level is a terrace, as well as classroom space. And then the top level has an outside terrace as well as classroom space, which most of this is science labs for the project. And noting with the project funding, funding available is $101 million. And the proposed project budget is also the same amount. And we have proposed joint fund items. Funding is $8,290,000 as reported at the last meeting. Okay, I think that's it. Oh. So are there any questions?
Excellent. So first, I think we will take speakers. Ms. Mercado, do we have speakers on this item?
Yes, we have 6 speakers.
Okay.
The first speaker is Ms. Tana Sominski.
Good evening. My name is Tana Szymanski, and I have a child with significant support needs. On behalf of the 112 individuals and disability rights organizations who wrote to you earlier this week, I am here to express concern regarding the design of the Wilson Building. The design envisions students with significant disabilities in the Stratford program entering through their own special door. This is personally offensive to those who understand that the routine physical segregation and isolation of people with disabilities is harmful, including the many signatories of the letter who are current or potential members of the Stratford community. The point tonight is not whether the Stratford program should or should not exist. That is a discussion for a different day. nor are we questioning whether every entrance is wheelchair accessible. Surely APS was careful to comply with the ADA. The point tonight is simply that the design sends the message that it is okay for students with significant disabilities to use separate entrances and be kept largely out of sight. While Stratford students no doubt could use the building's main entrance, the design ensures that it will be extremely inconvenient to do so. And the design actually prevents natural interactions between students with and without disabilities. Patronizing remarks like, quote, "they prefer it this way," or "it's for their own good," helped perpetuate racial segregation in the 1940s and 50s. Decades of research tells us that special facilities make people feel stigmatized, devalued, and inferior. That is why we do not allow separate entrances and drinking fountains for African American students or separate bathrooms for transgender students. Why would we think it's okay to have separate entrances for disabled students? 24 prospective Stratford students raised these points in 2015. We were assured that our concerns would be addressed. Unfortunately, separate entrances remain. If APS cannot fix the Wilson Building, then the Stratford program should be moved to a building that will welcome students with disabilities rather than treat them like second-class citizens. Thank you for your leadership.
The second speaker is Caroline Levy. Or Mr. Josh Folt.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of Carolyn Levy, who could not be here tonight, and I was asked to speak for the president of SEPTA. It breaks my heart as I try to read this speech. My son is one of the students in the Stratford program, uses a wheelchair, and has 10 more years in APS. In 2015, I spoke to the FAC about the concerns with segregated concept design of the Wilson Building. The minutes of that FAC meeting state that after I left, my concerns were dismissed. Although the design showed that the entrance labeled with the word Stratford program, it was claimed that the entrance would only be used in bad weather. The minutes also stated that John Chadwick, quote, reminded everyone that instructional and special services, not facilities and operations, makes decisions about how best to achieve inclusiveness, end quote. The final design shows the Stratford offices and classrooms will be located one level below the building's main entrance. Because Stratford students, especially those in wheelchairs, like my son, will have to go out of their way and take an elevator to use the main entrance, they are unlikely to do so. My son has just 30 minutes of interaction with HB Woodlawn friends once a week. Stratford students eat at separate tables in the cafeteria, and there is no interaction with HB students during lunch. Stratford students used to attend dress rehearsals of HB programs in the auditorium, but this has stopped since their teacher who coordinated that left Stratford. The final design gives me and my husband, Jim Rio, little hope that when programs move to the Wilson Building, my son will have more opportunities to naturally and meaningfully interact with non-disabled peers. The already extreme segregation of the Stratford program is unfortunately being perpetuated. How does APS believe its vision for an inclusive culture and education for Stratford students is reflected in this design? Signed, Carolyn Levy.
The next speaker is Hannah Greco.
I grew up in Arlington. At every school I attended, the special education classrooms were hidden, secreted away, especially the self-contained rooms for children with significant disabilities. At Yorktown, the special education classrooms were on the bottom floor, the basement, near closets and storage. Those kids, and they really were those kids, were not part of my world. They were not part of our school community. We've come a long way in Arlington since then. I taught here for 8 years, and inclusion was an important part of my life as an educator. Kids from many backgrounds and with many types of gifts were valued. I am now a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids in this school system, and one of my kids has multiple disabilities, significant disabilities, and he is taught in a self-contained classroom at Campbell Elementary School. He walks in the front door every day with all the other kids. He smiles and talks to other kids his age. He helps younger kids who think he's the coolest big kid ever. He goes to gym, art, and music with the general population. He eats lunch and plays outside with the rest of the school. He's a valued part of the Campbell community. He loves this school, even on really hard days. And he has an impact on every student he interacts with. He learns from them, and they learn from him, greeting each other, chatting casually, observing different behaviors, and normalizing them. It creates an environment where a regular day, a regular landscape is complex, and beautiful and not always easy or comfortable. And that's better for everyone, for every single member of his school community. I'm here tonight to ask you to take this beautiful school design and tweak it, to create an opportunity for regular, daily interactions that aren't scheduled or contrived, that instead are just part of the school culture, to have the kids walk in the front door together, to see each other, experience each other, chat with each other. You should meet my kid. He's so cool. Other kids are better people because they know him, and my son will be better equipped to thrive in this world, having learned how to navigate a diverse environment.
The next speaker, Michelle Best.
Hi, my name is Michelle Best, and I'm also here tonight to speak in favor of a single main entrance for all students at the New Wilson Building. I have 3 children with disabilities. In addition to his other disabilities, my middle son also battles a muscle disease. As a result of this battle, my son participates in camp with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And this past fall, we spent a month at the Ronald McDonald House in Baltimore while he attended a day rehabilitation program at the Kennedy Krieger Institute. As a result, my son and I have had the privilege of not only being exposed to, but developing relationships with children who have severe disabilities, and sometimes with their families as well. These kids and families are amazing. We have been awed and inspired by them. Excuse me. I wish there was a way for everyone to experience this. And there is. No community is without members who have severe disabilities. Getting past the disability and developing relationships with kids can be challenging. Having them hidden from our community by fully segregating them in separate programs with separate entrances does not help. In life, when we see people who are significantly different than we are, and the difference is one that we have not previously encountered or encountered much at all, most of us don't know how to respond. Typically, people either stare or pretend these people simply don't exist. Kids in the Stratford program deserve better. They deserve better than be sidelined. They deserve to be seen and to interact with their non-disabled peers. Kids know when they are not welcomed in the same way as their non-disabled peers. In addition, these kids need to know how to interact outside of their program. One day, they will graduate and potentially find employment. This should not be the first time they are exposed to the outside world. Thank you.
The next speaker is Margaret Gorman, and her comments will be read by Ms. Tana Sominski.
Thanks. My name is Margaret Gorman. I attended HB Woodlawn from 6th grade up until I graduated from high school in 2015, and I served on the APS Student Advisory Board for 4 years, the last year as chair. As a 6th grader at HB, I often cut through the Stratford program on my way to class, but as I got older, it became clear to me that this minimal intrusion into their space was just not something that HB students did. As a student in a segregated building, I learned that Stratford students had their space and we had ours. Our space was simply not for students with disabilities, nor was their space for us. The distinction made between us and them led many of my peers, myself included, to feel uncomfortable around the Stratford students. After I left HB, I realized how wrong this segregation actually is. Stratford students are kept out of sight and out of mind of HB students, and as a result, HB students learn that disabled people don't belong in their sector of society. We learn to perceive this separation as being, quote, for their own good. Students at HB and Stratford have the ability to see each other as equals, but this can't happen if even the architecture of the school separates them on such a fundamental level, particularly when the separation serves to tell HB students that it is acceptable to pretend as though the Stratford students do not exist. This is the message that the current design of the Wilson Building sends with its separate entrances for disabled and non-disabled students.
The next speaker is Ms. Elisa Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Elisa Cowan, a past chair of the Special Ed Advisory Committee and a perpetual advocate for those with differing abilities. Professionally, I'm a landscape architect. Every project I design and seal is required to comply with the codes and standards of the American with Disabilities Act of 1990 and also with the intent of that act. Public Law 101-336 is a civil rights statute that prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in all areas of public life. The 2010 standards set minimum requirements, both scope and technical, for newly designed and constructed or altered state and local government facilities, public accommodations, and commercial facilities so that they are readily accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. All public schools fall within this scope. My understanding is that the legal and frankly moral standard is that inclusion is the starting point, and that all individuals with disabilities should accompany their non-disabled peers as they approach a building entrance. Alarm bells to you and I should go off if the starting points are separate, because we know separate entrances are not equal. I understand there is great pressure on this decision that you face tonight and that time is critical. My free professional advice to you is this: adopt the most expedient path to the least expensive option available, and that is for the students of the Stratford program not to be relocated to the William Wilson building, but rather to be reassigned to a school building which has been designed as an accessible structure with an inclusionary culture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out this evening. What I'd like to do is, as we did with the previous action item, I'd like to take a motion, and then after that, we will have any questions and comment and discussion. So may I please have a motion?
Having carefully reviewed the extensive input from the Building Level Planning Committee, the Public Facilities Review Committee, multiple community groups and leaders, and the superintendent's recommendation, I move that the school board take the following actions as illustrated in the exhibits presented at the January 18th, 2018 school board meeting, which are identical to those shown at the January 4th, 2018 meeting. First, approve the final design for the project as described in exhibits A through I. Second, approve total project budget, funding available, and joint fund items as described in exhibits J through L. And third, award Phase 2 construction phase services contract to the Gilbane Building Company in the amount of $81,481,364 by increasing the existing purchase order to include the added contract value.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. How about questions for staff or comments or discussion? Ms. Van Doren.
Okay, hi. I apologize again for not having been here at the last meeting, so my questions probably have been more appropriate then, but I need to ask them now. Can you please explain to me where the spaces are? And I know you did some of this. You showed where the Stratford spaces were. But we do have two other programs at this building. One is the HILT program, and the other is the program for students with high-functioning autism. Can you please show me where those program spaces are? And then, just to get it all, I'll ask all my questions. Maybe we can just go through this really quickly and not take too much time. What I'm looking for is where those are in relationship to the rest of the classrooms, and then, in particular, I'd like to know where the Stratford program spaces are in relationship to the common spaces of the library, the cafeteria, and the gym.
Yes. So first of all, I would like to state that there are certain areas of the building where most of the Stratford program spaces are, but they are shared throughout the building. Let me start on the ground floor. Actually, this is really the basement. This is totally below grade, this level, and the only space that would be shared with the Stratford program students, there's no reason they wouldn't be able to use the Black Box Theater. The ground floor, which is actually pretty much at the elevation of the corner of Quinn Street and 18th Street, and therefore one level below, oh, thank you, sir. One level below, let me see if I can get it in the right place. Wilson Boulevard is up here. This is Quinn Street on this side, and 18th Street is up here. So this floor is about on the same elevation as that corner of the street corner. So on this floor, there are some of the administrative areas for the, I'm not very good at doing this, I'm sorry. There are some administrative, oh, wait a minute, here we go. There are some administrative areas for that belong specifically to the Stratford program. Both of the gyms are on that level, and both are designed to be used by students from the H.B. Woodlawn program and from the Stratford program, not to mention the other Asperger's and Esol Hilt programs. This is sort of equivalent to what we have in some of our other middle schools, which is an auxiliary gym. And there is a certain amount of equipment that some of the Stratford program students use, so they would use it in there. But they will also be able to share the main gymnasium. In fact, we had to have 2 gymnasiums in the school merely to meet the number of class periods that were required. And the big gymnasium, this line up here, is a net. Here's my problem. This is a net so that it can create 2 teaching areas, one on either side. Also on this level is the main floor of the auditorium. That is wheelchair accessible too, and that can certainly be shared with the Stratford program students. And hopefully that program where they watch the rehearsals and so on and take part in them can continue. And as you can see, completely on the same floor. This space here is the upper level of the Black Box Theatre.
And the Stratford
And,
classrooms are on this level?
pardon?
The Stratford classrooms are on this level?
These are classrooms that would be predominantly the brown ones, the ones that would be mostly used by Stratford program students, but there's no reason they can't be mixed. And as you can see, there are no specific doors or separations in that area. The other nice thing is that on this floor we have the art room, which is a fabulous space which you can look down into from the street, and that is also on this level. On the first floor, again, you have Wilson Boulevard here. Let me just go back for a minute. There will eventually be a formal entrance here on the ground floor, and there may or not be a covered walk. That could be used by Stratford students, but it can also be used by any of them, any of the students in the school. When the school opens, this will be the main entrance for students, actually in the space between the new Penzance development over here and our building. And the reason for that is that some students will walk in from being dropped off or walking through the neighborhood on Wilson, but the buses will be up here on 18th Street. We actually are going to be building a covered walkway, temporary walkway, to that entrance from 18th Street, so all students will enter that way into the building. The brown classrooms here are rooms that will be used probably more by Stratford students on this level. But on this level, we have the cafeteria. Cafeteria is completely shared between the H.B. Woodlawn students, the Esol Hilt students, the Asperger's students, and Stratford program students. And as you can see, it is right next to the area they will be in. There is an elevator somewhere in this area, I can't quite remember where it is, that goes between the 2 levels that will be used more by the Stratford program than other students in this part of the building. We have a total of 3 elevators over here, so there's 4 elevators in the building. These elevators in what's known as the central core go all the way through all 7 levels of the building. Of those, there are 2 regular-sized elevators that can take 2 regular wheelchairs. I know some of the students have other types of mobility devices that might take up more space. So 2 at a time can go in the regular-sized elevator, and then there's a larger elevator that can take up to 4 wheelchairs at a time. And there are practicalities on space as to how big we can make it. Also on this level is the upper level of the theater, the balcony. and that also can be accessed directly from this level. As you go up through the building, we have the library on this floor, which is the second floor. That library is shared completely by all the students in the program. There is no other library in the building, and it is designed and will be furnished so that they can all use it to their best ability. We have classrooms on this level. The yellow are science classrooms that will mostly be used by the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Over here, you're looking at the upper part of the auditorium theater, and then you have the public terrace on this level. Those are all directly accessed from these floors. And as we go on up through the building, as you know, the building rotates around. There's a terrace on every level, and the classroom bars rotate. So this is the, now we're looking at the 4th level, third level, right? Right. And on this, yes, 3rd level, thank you. And on this level, we have music rooms. Again, those completely shared, they will be used by all students in the building. And then you go on up, and the 4th floor, you have more classrooms, and then the 5th floor has more classrooms, and then the science classrooms for the older students.
And where will the HILT students be?
HILT and Asperger students will be distributed through those floors, wherever is most convenient and for the staff to operate. Clearly, when you're talking about universal design, I personally find it very appealing because it's not prescriptive and it's about learning, about doing better and better. And I firmly believe that in about 15 years, 20 years' time, we will know so much more we'll be thinking about things differently. But it isn't just design, it's how you operate and manage the building and the mindset with which you do that.
So for the Stratford students to access the library, they will need to go up in the elevator, and
Yes.
to access the cafeteria, they'll need to go up in an elevator from the 1st floor.
If they were on the ground floor, they would need to go up to get to the cafeteria, but if they're on the 1st floor, they're on the same floor.
Okay.
They would go up to use the library, yes.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was very excited about the architectures, the big firm that you used, was that in some of the earlier designs, there was a ramp as opposed to stairs in the inside of the building. Why did we not use that approach?
There are some practicalities to do with ramps. You have to have a gradient of, I think it's, 1 in 12, Jeff? Yeah. So that means when you're going up, I think we have, a 14-foot floor-to-floor height? So it gets very long, and it takes up a lot of space in the building. And if you're going to do it on every floor of the building, it just takes up more and more space. And the more floors you go up, the longer it takes to get up. So in an urban building, we don't see many ramps, maybe connecting main floors, but not going all the way up through the building. And it became a very expensive proposition to do that.
Thank you. All right. How much did you use the universal design concepts in designing this building?
We were motivated by them and used them as much as we could all the way through. And as I say, some of the things that we do, for example, we have learned that LED lighting, which we have through this building, it allows some students with particular visual disabilities to read and see better than they can. There are students who have a particular condition where they have to wear green lenses. They don't have to wear them with LED. We also take a great deal of care to make sure that our HVAC systems don't create an amount of noise that would make it hard for any student to hear and understand what's going on in the classroom, but particularly students who may have hearing impairments. So it's very much how can we think about every aspect of the school so that different people with different abilities and disabilities are not segregated or differentiated from one another.
Okay. I'm going to leave my questions at that, but I just want to make a statement, and that is that I do wish that we had more aggressively used universal design principles in this building. I wish that we had one entrance, as there are at the other high schools, into which all the students enter the building. I really wish we had done that, but here's where we are. We don't have that. So I want to ask the superintendent that to the maximum extent possible, that all the spaces in that be aggressively programmed to be used by all the students, so that the letter that we heard from the young woman who had been a student at HB, that is not the experience either the HB students or the Stratford students or the Hilt students who are on their own hallway right now, or the Asperger students. I would really like us to be mindful that now we have a building. It's going to be a beautiful building. Can we please make it as inclusive as possible? That would be my request to you. And I'll finish and then you can just speak. I do believe that we should have a commitment to full inclusion in this school system, and I'm going to ask my colleagues as we go through the policy review process to incorporate that in our work. We will be looking at our facilities policies as part of our policy review process. There is part of that facility policy that says that we will abide by ADA. I would like us to consider expanding that to include the concept of universal design, and do that sooner than right now. It's slated for the fourth quarter of 2019. I'd love to move that up because we're building buildings. And I think we need to keep that in the forefront when we're doing our designing, when we hire people to do the designing, to make sure that it's just part of what we do. And I understand, I was aware that we did make adjustments to Fleet, but I would like to not have to be reminding about this all the time, but rather it just be our common practice. So for me, inclusion, universal design, to the extent that students have the opportunity to experience people of all abilities, not only makes it better for our students on a daily basis, but also makes us a stronger community. And I thank you for beginning to think this way, and I'd like you to ask you to do that. Tonight, one of our MLK speakers was a young man whose brother, who has since passed away. He won a first place award for his speaking, and it has been my experience that when people of all abilities are together, they are stronger, better, and learn more, and we are a stronger community. And he said, despite the fact that his brother couldn't speak, that his brother didn't need words to inspire him. He inspired him every day. We need this to happen in all of our buildings at all times. This entrance should have been one entrance. But I just ask you, Dr. Murphy, in all of our practices, to see if you can make that happen. See if you can make that happen everywhere in that building and in all of our buildings. So I don't know if you can respond to that.
Glad to, and thank you, Mr. Chadwick, for providing the background information on what's led us here. And Ms. Van Dorn, your points and the speaker's points, I think, are very appropriate. I do want to say, kind of at a base, moving away from facilities or any discussion, we are having discussions about the the ideas and how we move forward with inclusion. That's something that Dr. Nattrass has been working to a great extent on. That's something that's part of our strategic plan discussions as we move forward. So that belief, that philosophy, those approaches are really beginning to get some traction as we begin to move forward. I do want to make a note, and Mr. Chadwick actually said it, there's a variety of different ways, and design supports the approach with inclusion that you can place in a building. But at the end of the day, it's how individuals act within that, how the building is managed, how the culture, and I think one of the speakers spoke to that, and really a mindset. And so I think it's going to be necessary to have training. It's also going to be necessary to have opportunities to have folks see what those possibilities can look like, and ultimately how all students can achieve. And we believe that all students can, if set in the right instructional environment, achieve on a variety of different levels. So I hear your comments. I think the rest of the board also, we need to have a broader discussion, but this is something that we do have some traction, and that is afoot. And I think we've also, as we move forward, I think this will be a front burner issue for us as far as how new buildings are brought online. but we have many existing buildings that we need to make sure that many of these practices are in place. And I think it's something that we model and we believe. And I take to heart the comment that the one speaker said about just the history of not only Arlington Public Schools, but other school divisions, how, the belief system may have been to place different students at different levels in different places in buildings, and we've really moved away from that. And I think that's something that we should be proud of, but we continue to need to move forward on those issues.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board comments, questions? Mr. Goldstein?
Thank you. I guess I want to say something, but I do have a question. So I guess let me make my statement first. So I'm going to support this motion for basically two reasons. First is that I researched and I spoke to several members of the Wilson BLPC, and they all told me consistently that issues related to Stratford programs, Stratford students, building design, continually came up during the discussions in the BLPC, and design was adjusted as a result of the themes of those issues and the continual discussion that happened. So I was satisfied talking to members of the BLPC that this wasn't a kind of a one-off discussion where they designated Stratford issues for one meeting, talked about it, and then ignored it for the rest of the time. And I'm told that the building started out, the design, or I guess, preliminary concept design started with 2 libraries. We now have 1 library. 2 cafeterias became 1. 2 clinics became 1. So it was apparent, listening to members of the BLPC, that there were changes made as a result of the input that came from outside groups and also discussion within the BLPC. So that's my first reason. The second reason is that we're on the cusp of approving the funding for this, the guaranteed maximum price, after which we're moving full speed ahead for 18 months to be able to open in September of 19. There's a large hole in the ground at that site, and a significant delay would ensue if we were to change, well, I guess that's going to be my question. And we have so many more things that are contingent on this building opening on our scheduled time, September of 19, so that then, of course, the Stratford building can open on time and we can relieve the crowding that we find at several of the middle schools. So let me ask that question, which does relate to my second point. John, what retrofit possibilities are possible now, given the design that we have, moving forward both before and after September of 19? Retrofit possibilities moving, in the direction of, greater inclusion, greater universal design.
I think that at this point, the adjustments that have to be made are in the way that the building is managed and operated, and we will be working closely with staff to help them through that process. I'm not sure that we need to make any differences now, changes now. We provided 3 or 4 entrances to the building because it's on 3 different streets. People will approach it from different directions, and at different levels, actually. And as I stated, certainly when the school opens, all students will use one entrance. Staff will learn a lot from that, and I'm hopeful that they will continue to use that entrance as the main entrance to the building. But all of our buildings are designed to be adaptable in the long term to changes and agile in the short term to changes during the course of the school day. So that the entrance situation is really, to me, at this point, a management issue. And please remember that entrances are also emergency exits, so they are required for those reasons as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was a little confused by some of the discussion that talked about or advocated for a single entrance, because I don't think any of our schools have a single entrance. As you say,
It's
there are also
true. There
multiple
are
exits.
several entrances at Washington Lee. There is a main entrance at Yorktown, but students do enter the building from other entrances.
I mean, I think in all of the schools, there are probably entrances that are kind of highlighted more as...
Well, and Wakefield has an entrance that students who arrive by the bus tend to take directly off Dinwiddie Street, whereas the main entrance to the building is off the circle under the big canopy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments? Before we vote, let me just make a couple of quick comments as well. As we've been going through all this, by the way, this beautiful architectural design, I was reflecting back, this has been a very long process, and in fact, this was already underway when I joined the board. And so my first meetings on this, this project were some early, I don't remember what they were, community meetings, before the BLPC was even formed. And this conversation had come up at that point. Should Stratford move with HB Woodlawn? And conversations like that. I want to, a number of things have not been mentioned tonight. The HB community and all of those programs, and Stratford especially, argued passionately that they wanted to stay together. It was important to the parents, to the staff of all of those programs, as well as the students. They were their own best advocates for staying together and continuing to be together and work together. And I was very sorry also to hear Ms. Gorman's comments. She's, we all know Ms. Gorman. She was a former chair of the Student Advisory Board, among other things. And students tell us truths that we need to listen to, and we've been learning that over the last few years. And to the extent that students at HB, for example, feel that they haven't been interacting, they're our best problem solvers. And I know they're committed to being together because they told us. They came here and passionately advocated that they wanted to be. So I think there really are going to be some solutions, as we talked about culture, management, staff, students, families. There are going to be a lot of ways that I think these programs are really, truly committed to being together. It's interesting as we've had this conversation, there are a number of issues that, you know, that we've hit upon over the long process that didn't even come up tonight, like the existence of the temporary fire station next to this building, as well as the question of, we spent a lot of time on the question about historical, you know, the original historical building and such. So this has been a really long process with a lot of issues, a lot of community advocacy and participation. As Mr. Goldstein mentioned, and thank you, Mr. Goldstein, you were the liaison to this process. You know, there were a lot of community members, the principals and such, and staff very involved as well. And we're going forward because the building's not up yet. So we've got more to do. But with that, yes, Ms. O'Grady has a comment. Sorry, I thought I was ending it there, but go ahead.
I apologize. I just want to say that I appreciate everything I heard tonight. I hope that everyone understands, from my standpoint, this is not the end of the conversation. It will continue. I do believe that inclusion is important. I do believe that our community is stronger when students of differing abilities have the opportunity to spend time together. And so I look forward to continuing to have the conversation and how our students can work well together. I also believe that our students are fantastic visionaries and can understand and discuss and add to this conversation. And I believe that they do understand the value of being with people who are different than they are, because I do believe that they understand, they learn so much about themselves when they get to interact with people who are different than themselves. So I look forward to having more conversations about this and hope we can grow from this point in the direction of more inclusion. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, shall we vote on the motion? I hope you all remember the motion at this point, but we did have one. Okay? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations on your great work, and thank you so much to the community for coming out. I do want to mention as well that we have received your letters, and we have a lot of information. Mr. Chadwick summarized some of it this evening, but we have a lot of narrative that we have been developing to share a little bit more about the changes and the shared spaces and such that have been created, especially in response to the earlier community advocacy, and we will be getting that letter out. We're going to aim for tomorrow, but certainly in the near future, we'll be getting that letter out to folks. So thank you all very much for coming out. And with that, we will go on to our next action item, and that is the FY 2017 final fiscal closeout. Our stock picker is going to be back with us. Dr. Murphy, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, we'll return to Ms. Peterson, who is going to bring this for action. You may have recalled that I believe we brought this to the board prior to the winter break.
Yes, sir.
And as a
December
regular practice that we have is we try and place a meeting between the information and the action item. This gives one of our committees a chance, the Budget Advisory Committee, a chance to have some input and also reflect on some of our recommendations. So, Ms. Peterson, I will turn to you at this point. I think this looks very similar to what we brought prior to the winter break.
This is a very condensed version of what I brought to you prior to the break and deals really only with the amount of funding that is available at closeout and what will happen to that funding. So we have $13.6 million from our operations, savings and operations, and then we have $4.5 million in additional tax revenue from the county for a total of $18.1 million in total available for reallocation. We have one change since we brought this to you in December, and that follows directly from the action that you just took, approving the Wilson GMP, and that is that the addition to the capital reserve was reduced by the funding for the Wilson project of $2.6 million. So the funds available are $18.1 million. We are recommending adding $6 million to the compensation reserve, $3.8 million to the capital reserve, $2.6 million for the Wilson project, $2 million for the debt service reserve, and $3.7 million for FY18 requirements. These are all outlined in the 9 separate documents that are currently housed on board docs. So we are reallocating all $18.1 million at this time.
Okay, and let's first, before discussion, let's start with a motion. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the school board adopt resolutions 1 through 5 as presented by staff.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if we have speakers. Do we have speakers?
Yes, we have 8 speakers.
Let's take speakers. Speakers before the motion, yeah. Sorry about that. Yes, but we'll start over with the motion after speakers. Sorry.
The first speaker is Mr. Josh Full.
When I spoke last on closeout, I stressed the need to ensure that every possible dollar is pushed forward as a hedge against a tight budget next year. Little has changed in next year's budget scenario, so I ask you to be cautious. It was not long ago that in APS that things trumped people when the budget ran tight. The memories of lost wages were not soon forgotten. This coming budget cycle is not about shiny objects, but buildings, poised to be pitted against the needs of your staff. From the loyal bus drivers waiting for a full contract to the new teacher just trying to climb the pay scale, we, your employees, are counting on the school board to keep the promises made to them throughout the years. I am sure tonight this closeout money will be assigned as posted with little public scrutiny and no input from the Budget Advisory Committee. You will be told this is one-time money. However, I am reminded of the quote, "Today is a gift, and tomorrow is not promised." In truth, all money is one election away from being one-time money. I am grateful and ecstatic at how much is being pushed forward for next year's needs. But that not so small sum being spent today concerns me, as it won't be available later. Remember your commitments to your staff and the families that they will provide for.
The next speaker is Ms. Nadine Asef Sargent.
I thought I still had 3 minutes, so I'll speak fast. Ms. Talento's proposal to set aside year-end funding for mental health programs such as Love the Skin You're In and Ending the Silence demonstrates that finally APS is getting serious about the whole child and acting on the multiple challenges facing our children today. I support these efforts completely and trust that you all feel the same. The Whole Child Framework defines the APS vision to develop a sustainable approach and ensure that each student is healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and academically challenged. But the nonstop focus on academic excellence and success defined by APs, GPAs, and college acceptances comes all too often at the expense of our children's mental health. Students struggling with mental illness or other mental health needs are too often left to deal with problems on their own, silenced by lack of understanding, stigma, or both. My child graduated with an advanced studies diploma, college acceptances, APs, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. What good is that diploma now? It's worthless. What happened the one time she went for help to a school counselor? Nothing. Some were upset over 13 Reasons Why for glorifying suicide, but they missed the point of how spot on that story is and how benign neglect leads to serious, at times life-threatening consequences. As we struggle to get our child the help she needs, one woman became a turning point in her recovery, and that woman is Bree Mathers, the force behind Love the Skin You're In. Thanks to APS and local funding, last year Bree reached hundreds of middle and high school girls. This new funding for mental health programs would allow programs like Bree to present her transformational presentation to all middle and high school students regardless of gender. I would like to share a few of the hundreds of student comments from Bree's APS presentations last year. Thank you for coming and talking. I suffer from depression, and this opened me to new thoughts and ideas. Hopefully tomorrow I will wake up and won't begin my day by screaming at myself. I have struggled with anorexia since 4th grade. I spent most of my high school career in and out of treatment. This talk was so inspiring, and I related to it in so many ways. Thank you for being a role model. I learned that there are so many people who are going through the same thing
Thank you very
I am.
much.
I have anxiety, depression, bulimia, anorexia, and now I think my friends.
Thank you very much. We do have to stick to the time. I'm really sorry. Ms. Asef Sargent, please. Thank you. I really do have to ask you to stick to the time. Everyone, out of fairness. Ms. Asef Sargent, out of fairness, I do have to ask you to stick to the time. We do expect all speakers to do that. I'm very sorry. If you could conclude. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ms. Eliza Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Elisa Cowan. I'm past chair of the Special Ed Advisory, a longtime member and founding member with others here tonight of the Mental Health Task Force. I want to thank you for calling tonight's meeting because we haven't met in several years because we were merged in with a group at the partnership and we lost our ability to have a voice here at APS. So this is a great way to start the year by kicking off our reconvening of this meeting tonight. I'm an active member of NAMI Northern Virginia that historically has been a partner with APS, but I noticed tonight online that we're not listed in the partnership directory for 16 and 2017. I'm really disappointed about that. I'm speaking in favor of the proposal that is before you by Ms. Talento tonight because for too long we have formed committees, talked, gathered data, talked more, formed more committees, more subcommittees, talked more, and we have not done anything that is significant, consistent, or equitable in terms of delivery or access to generate and provide high-impact mental health programs for our students. We've asked time and again, and now we have a wonderful opportunity, and I want to appreciate that that opportunity is there for us tonight, to coordinate with Bree Mathers and the NAMI signature program used throughout the United States called Ending the Silence. Talking about suicide does not increase the likelihood that suicide will occur. In fact, it reduces the likelihood that suicides will occur. Our students are begging and dying for this information, and as an educational body, we owe them this opportunity. This program and programs like it save lives, and we have lost lives in this county. We need to provide life-saving education. Let's stop talking about it and do something. Your time is up.
The next speaker is Ms. Naomi Verdugo.
Nearly half of all diagnosable mental illnesses show symptoms by age 14, 75% by age 24, yet only 1 in 5 adolescents between ages 12 and 17 receive treatment or counseling. Left untreated, the consequences are tragic and costly, but with early intervention programs, these illnesses have excellent outcomes. With this in mind, I strongly endorse Ms. Talento's proposal to use year-end funds to bring Loving the Skin You're In and Ending the Silence to all APS middle and high school students. For over 15 years, I have volunteered as a support group facilitator here in Arlington, and I have heard hundreds of parents concerned about their child or teen's psychiatric illness, disordered eating, and severe body image issues. Because of this experience, I know there is a true need for these presentations, and this is borne out by results of the spring 2017 Youth Risk Assessment, which showed increased bullying, increased sadness. This is particularly true when APS no longer has a mental health task force, which was so ably led by Alvin Crawley, but was not effectively maintained after his departure. With limited programming to raise awareness and combat stigma surrounding mental illness and foster self-acceptance, I am very excited about this proposal. Mental health first aid trains teachers and staff to draw out students who may be at risk of suicide, but this is a much broader effort aimed at all middle and high school students. I strongly support this proposal and hope you will too. Thank you.
Next speaker, Audrey Clements.
Welcome, members of the school board, the superintendent, and APS staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The superintendent's FY17 closeout presentation indicates the availability of $18.1 million to spend, consisting of budget savings and increased tax revenue from the county. Of these funds, the superintendent proposes to allocate the majority, $11.8 million, to reserve accounts, including $6 million to the compensation reserve, $3.8 million to the capital reserve, and $2 million to the debt service reserve. These funds will be added to existing reserve accounts, which, as indicated by the sum of reserve items listed in Resolution 4 before you tonight, total $83.7 million. They will thus bring the APS reserve accounts to $95.5 million, or 15.5% of the adopted FY18 budget of $613.6 million. This is excessive. Why are the majority of APS budget closeout funds squirreled away in contingency accounts when there are other much better uses of funds? We heard one of them tonight. The superintendent predicts an FY19 budget shortfall of $21.4 million. Why aren't the savings realized in FY17 utilized to close the FY19 gap? Why is $6 million earmarked for a compensation reserve when $12.1 million is needed for increased compensation in 2019? Why is $2 million earmarked for debt service reserve when $5.8 million more is needed for debt service right now? In short, why is so much money being moved off the books when it could be allocated to current critical needs? I know that it's prudent to maintain reserves as a cushion against future contingencies, and I do appreciate the need to maintain a capital reserve when major construction is in progress as it is now. But the FY17 final fiscal status report.
Thank you very much. Yes,
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
The next speaker is David Abramowitz.
Thanks, and thanks to the school board for giving us an opportunity to speak. I just wanted to thank the proposal for funding for mental health, as was described earlier. And I do want to say that I think it's very important that these funds be used for prevention activities that reach the widest range of students. There's a lot of different mental health needs that could be addressed, of course, and we've heard a little bit about that. But I think that we know that there are a lot of students who are at risk with the anxiety, high pressure, image issues that particularly young females have, and that we really need to try to reach as many as possible. I think that the comments that were made about the programs like Ending the Silence and Bree Mather's programs about Love the Skin You're In, where really the emphasis is on loving who we are as opposed to what we look like in an environment in which social media and other activities can really send the opposite message, are really important. And I just wanted to share one anecdote, and one of the reasons that I'm up here is that I have a very, very good family friend whose daughter had real struggles with anorexia, and our very good friends, her parents, really thought that she was close to losing her life and really had tremendous threats to her ability to finish high school. And on her way to becoming healthy, she heard the Love the Skin You're In program, was able to participate in a small group program. And she said, I wish that I had heard this from the very beginning, because I think the trajectory of my life would have been totally different. Please listen to voices like that and to the comments like Nadine was reading earlier, and know that these kinds of programs are critical to success. And thank you very much.
The next speaker is Emma Ernest.
Hello, my name is Emma Ernest. I'm 27 years old. Oh, sorry. Okay, fine. I first heard Bree Mathers from Love the Skin You're In speak at HB Woodlawn in 2016, and it changed my life. I come from a very abusive childhood. I come from a lot of body issues. I'm 27, and I'm just now getting my life together, struggling with depression and child regression and body issues. And if I hadn't heard her speak, I would still be in a really bad relationship, and I would still be in a really negative headspace, still struggling with addictions and depression. And I saw her speak, and it changed my life. And I wish I graduated 10 years ago, and I wish I had seen her speak in high school when I needed it the most. When I ran the theater department, and the kids came to me for answers. And how can kids with these body issues and suicidal tendencies and drug addiction in high school, how can they come to another student when there's no programs there for them? Like, how are we allowing that to happen? We need to be talking about, we need to provide a space for kids to feel safe. And right now, even when I was in high school, kids, there's a stigma. You're uncool if you have an issue. You don't want to talk about it. There's girls are bullying other girls because they're fat. They're not fat. In fact, they have eating disorders. And we need Bree to speak. It changed my life, and I know if you read the cards that we brought, it's just mind-blowing. I've read all of them from HB Woodlawn, and to read these kids who are coming out anonymously with issues that they can't talk about. They can't go to their parents because some of their parents won't believe them, or they're going home to face abuse. They can't go to other students because the kids don't understand what they're going through. Try telling another 12-year-old, hey, I'm suicidally depressed. Like, you're just coined as an emo kid or something else, and you're put into this box and bullied even further. And that's just, we need a place where adults, we can support the children, and they can have a safe place to come to. And Bree's talks provide these various associations. Thank you.
The next speaker, Jane Posner, with Sophie and Chloe Posner.
All right, start. Ready? My name is Jane Posner. I'm just a mom. This is my daughter, Chloe. She's a senior at Washington Lee. My other daughter, Sophie, she's an 8th grader at Swanson. Bree Mathers has really touched my girls in ways that made me come out here at 8 o'clock when I have lots of other places to be and things to do. She has inspired so many of Sophie's friends. And the one thing that I would like to request is that if we are able to move forward with bringing her to speak to all the schools, if it could be done during the school day. When she spoke at Washington Lee after school, Chloe was not able to go. She had crew. We had trouble getting some of the girls over, and the timing, if you have it during the day like they did at McLean High School had the program during the day, and everybody just had to come. And so it wasn't like you were saying, I have a problem if I have to stay after and go, or my mom's making me. But if you have it during the school day, it will really benefit and reach the most amount of people. I also wanted to thank Ms. Talento for supporting this. And if you have any questions for the girls, they're super happy to be here. Do you want to say anything? Do you want, Sophie? Say. Do you like Bree? Would you like Bree to come?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for coming